They called him the ugliest prince in the entire kingdom, hidden away from the world, feared by everyone, rejected by every woman who ever met him. Prince Kade was the last hope of his royal bloodline. But when one fearless girl refused to run, everything begins to change. What she discovered is more shocking than any rumor. A hidden truth, a dangerous secret, and a curse that was never what it seemed. This is a powerful, emotional African story movie about fear, love, truth, and destiny. Watch till the end because the truth will shock you. The night the last prince was born, the sky did not celebrate. It cracked. Lightning through the heavens like something trying to escape, and thunder rolled so violently that the palace walls trembled as if they too feared what had entered the world. Inside the royal chambers, servants reigned in public, not with joy, not with celebration, but with dread, because the child had cried and suddenly stopped. Why has he gone quiet? The queen whispered weakly, her body still trembling from childbirth. No one answered. The midwife stood frozen. One of them dropped the clothes she was holding. Another covered her mouth. And the oldest among them, Mama Sade, who had delivered nearly every royal child in the past 40 years, took a slow step back. Say something, the queen demanded, her voice breaking. Is my child alive? Mama Sade finally spoke, but her voice was not the voice of someone bringing good news. My queen, she said slowly, the child lives. Silence. But the king rolled across from the room. The old woman hesitated. Then she whispered something no mother could ever hear. But the spirit have marked him. Outside the palace, the storm grew worse. Inside, the future of a kingdom began to unveil. The boy was named Kade, a name that meant the one who carries the crown. But from the moment that name was spoken, it felt more like a burden than a blessing. Because Kade was not like the others. From infancy, strange things followed him. When he cried, oil lamp flickered. When he slept, servants complained of whispers in the corridor. And when he opened his eyes, deep, unsettling eyes that seemed to look through people instead of at them, grown men would quietly excuse themselves from the room, not out of disrespect, but out of fear. The king tried to ignore it at first. He is my son, he would say firmly, and he will be raised as a prince. But even he could not deny the growing unease in the palace. One night, when Kade was barely 3 years old, a maid ran screaming from his chamber. He was standing, she cried. That is not strange, another servant said. He was standing and talking to someone who was not there. By the time Kade turned 5, no one wanted to be alone with him. But the true terror began on the day of the mirror. It was a quiet afternoon. The queen had insisted that her son be treated like a normal child, at least within the palace walls. So she ordered a mirror to be placed in his room. He must know himself, she said. He must see who he is. The servants obeyed reluctantly. They placed a tall, polished mirror near the window and on the left side of the bed. They left the boy alone standing. Minute passed. Then came a sound, a soft, confused sound. Mama! Kade's voice called. The queen, who had been nearby, rushed into the room. My son! Kade stood in front of the mirror staring, not smiling, not laughing, just staring. Who is that? He asked quietly. The queen smiled gently, though something in his chest tightened. That is you, my love. Kade shook his head. No. He stepped back slowly. That one, is different." The queen's smile faded. "What do you mean?" Kade pointed at the mirror. "He looks wrong." The queen forced herself to look, and for a moment, just a moment, her breath caught. Because the reflection seemed off, not monstrous, not deformed, but unsettling in a way that she could not explain, as if something deeper than appearance was misaligned there. That night, the mirror was moved and never brought back. And from that day, Kade was no longer allowed to roam freely within the palace, at least until we understand what he is, the king said quietly. "What is he?" The queen snapped. "He is our son." "And he is the last male heir," the king replied. "We cannot afford mistakes." "Mistakes?" the queen asked. That word echoed in the hall like a curse. Years passed, and no one knew what happened next. One by one, every other male relative of the royal bloodline died. Uncle fell mysteriously ill, cousins vanished during hunting trips, even distant relatives and men who had long been abandoned by the kingdom were reported dead under strange circumstances. It did not take long from whispers to begin. "The curse has returned. The spirits are cleansing the bloodline. Only one remains, Prince Kade." By the age of 12, Kade had been moved permanently to the highest tower of the palace, not as a punishment, but as protection. Or so they claimed. "The world is not ready for you," the queen told him, her voice soft but heavy with something she could not hide. "When will it be?" Kade asked. The queen had no answer. So Kade learned to live in silence. He slept, he listened, he watched the world through the narrow window. And sometimes he spoke to things no one else could see. By 16 years, the rumor outside the palace had grown into legend. They say he has no face. They say his skin is burned with sunlight. They say he is not fully human. They say the queen hides him because even she fears him. And the most dangerous rumor of all, they say any woman who looks at him goes mad. So when the royal announcement finally was made, the kingdom trembled. My friends, if you've been sticking with me all through this story till this moment, and you want to know what happened when the royal decree was made, please ensure you subscribe to this channel. Also turn on the notification bell so that anytime that I post, you get to see what we are talking about or the story that is next. Let's continue. So, when the royal decree was made, the kingdom trembled. The prince must marry. The decree spread across the villages, markets, and distant land. Any eligible woman was invited. Chosen candidates would be brought to the palace, and one of them would become the bride of the last prince. But there was a condition, a terrifying one. She must accept him willingly. The first girl arrived with confidence. She left before dawn, shaking, refusing to speak of what she saw. The second fainted, the third screamed, and the fourth ran so fast she injured herself trying to escape the palace gates. Each one carried the same message back to the world. "I will never go back there." Weeks turned into months. Hope began to die. Because without a wife, there will be no child. And without a child, the royal bloodline of Adunola would end forever. One night, deep within the shrine of ancestors, the palace priest spoke words that chilled even the king. "This is not just about marriage," he said. "The curse demands something deeper." "What?" the queen asked, her hands trembling. Truth. Silence. A woman must see him and still choose him, the priest continues. No fear, no deception, no force. If no one does, the king said quietly. The priest looked directly at him. Then the lineage dies with him. Far away from the palace, in a quiet village where the rumors had grown into frightening bed stories, a young woman named Amara had the decree. Unlike others, she did not laugh. She did not fear. She simply asked one question. Has anyone seen him? And that question would change everything. The first girl who refused to marry the prince ran without shoes, and the second girl would not speak for 3 whole days. The third one fainted even before reaching the tower. By the time the 10th girl fled the palace, the kingdom had stopped pretending. This was no longer a royal duty, it was a death sentence. Why do you keep bringing them? One of the guards muttered one evening as another carried left the palace gate in panic. Because we must, the other replied. And if no one stays, the first guard looked up at the tower structure where the prince lived, its window always dim, its door always guarded. Then the royal bloodline ends, and we all live to see what follows after that. Fear. That was ruled Anola by now. Not the king, not the queen, but fear of unseen prince and a curse no one fully understood. Miles away from the palace, in a quiet village where life was simple, survival mattered more than rumors, Amara sat beside a small fire listening. They say his eyes glow in the dark, a woman whispered. They say his voice can make you forget your own name, another added. They say he is not even human, a third one concluded, shaking her head. Amara stirred the pot slowly, her face calm. Who has seen him? She asked. The women fell silent. Well, one finally said, no one has stayed long enough to truly say. Amara nodded slightly. So everything we know is fear? No one answered her, but deep down, they knew she was right. Amara was not like the other girls. Life had already shown her things worse than rumors. She had lost her parents at a young age, raised herself, worked harder than most men in the village, survived anger, rejection, and loneliness. So fear was not new to her. But something about the prince story did not sit right with her. Not the whisper, not the screams, not even the curse. It was the pattern. No one has seen him properly, she muttered to herself that night as she lay down on a thin mat. No one has stayed long enough to understand. Her heart slowly closed. Maybe they were never meant to. The next morning, Amara made a decision that would echo through the kingdom. I am going to the palace, she said to herself. The entire village froze. You want to what? An older man asked. Marry the prince, she replied simply. Laughter broke out, nervous, disbelieving, and mocking. You? A woman scoffed. Do you think you are stronger than the others? Amara shook her head. No. Then why go? She paused, then said something that silenced everyone. Because I want to see the truth for myself. And just like that, she left. The journey to the palace was long. Dusty road, burning sun, whisper from travelers who heard the same stories. Turn back, one wonder. You will not return the same. Another one said. Some don't return at all, a third one added. But Amara kept walking. By the time she reached the palace gates, the guards were already shaking their heads. Another one muttered. You can still go back, the other one said firmly. We will not stop you. Amara looked up at the towering palace and then at a distant stop from Tyre, where a single window stood slightly open. Has anyone ever stayed? She asked. The guard hesitated. Then one of them said no. Amara nodded. Then maybe that is the problem. They exchanged glances. You really want to do this? The first guard asked. Amara met his eyes. I'm not here to run. And for the first time in months, the palace door opened for someone who did not tremble. Inside, the atmosphere felt heavy, not haunted, not cursed, but burdened, as if the walls themselves carried the secret they could not release. Servants watched her as she passed. Some pitied her, some feared for her. Another one voided their eyes completely. She did not last, the last one that came here. And you won't last either, one whispered. They all said that, another one said. Amara heard them, but she did not respond. She was taken to a room to prepare. A simple room, quiet and still. A tray of food was placed before her, untouched. Hours passed, then night fell. A knock came at the door. The time has come, maid said softly. Amara stood, took a deep breath, and stepped into the unknown. The walk to the tower felt longer than it should have. Each step echoed. Each turn felt heavier, until finally she stood before the door. The same door every girl had passed through. The same door every girl had fled from. The guard opened it slowly. The hinges creaked. Darkness waited on the other side. You can still change your mind, he said quietly. Amara looked at the darkness, then stepped forward. I did not come this far to turn back. The door closed behind her. Silence. The room was dimly lit by a single lantern. A large bed stood at the far end, and on it, a figure, still, watching. Amara did not rush. She did not panic. She simply stood there, letting her eyes adjust. I know you're there, she said calmly. A long pause, then a voice, deep, rough, careful. They all say that before they leave. Amara took a step forward. I am not them. Another pause, longer this time. You should be afraid, a voice said. Amara tilted her head slightly. Why? Silence again, but this silence felt different. Not distance, not cold, but uncertain. Because everyone else was, he firmly replied. Amara walked closer, slowly, deliberately. Did you ever ask them why? She said. The figure shifted slightly. They saw me, he said. And what did they see? She asked. No answer. Amara stepped closer again, now close enough to see his outline clearly. Look at me, he says slowly. His voice carried something new now, not just warning, but fear, as if he was one bracing himself. Amara stopped, took a breath, and then she looked. At the lantern flickered, shadow moved, and for the first time she saw him. Not a monster, not a beast, not something unnatural. A man. Different, yes. His features carried a strange intensity. His eyes, deep, piercing, held years of isolation. His presence, heavy with something unspoken. But ugly? No. Amara's expression did not change, and that was what broke him. You still here? He said quietly. Amara stepped even closer. I told you, she replied softly. I am not running. The prince stared at her, confused, guarded, almost lost. Why? He asked. Amara's answer came without hesitation. Because I don't see what they saw. Silence filled the room. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It was fragile, like something new had just been born. Far below the tower, the queen waited, restless, anxious. How long has it been? She asked. Longer than the others, a servant replied. The queen's hands tightened. Maybe, she whispered. But she couldn't finish the statement because hope had hurt her too many times before. Back in the tower, the prince spoke again. You don't know what it means, he said. Amara met his gaze. Then tell me. For the first time in his life, Prince Kade realized something terrifying. He wanted to, but he did not know how. Stay tuned for the second part of this story. There's more to know about the prince. And in the next part, I'm going to reveal what really made the other girls run away and why Amara is still sticking around. Share your thoughts about this story. What do you think? Do you think Amara is brave? Or do you think maybe Amara had known this secret before coming to the palace? Stay tuned. You'll find out in the next part. Bye.